Imagine this. You're watching a game, a massive FIFA World Cup club match. It's Real Madrid, you know, global superstars, legendary team.
Right, expectations are sky high.
Exactly. But then, just 7 minutes in, bang, they're down to 10 men.
7 minutes. Wow.
And it's not just that. The heat is absolutely blistering, over 90 degrees Fahrenheit, like a furnace out there.
Brutal conditions for playing top-level soccer.
Absolutely. And they're facing a team, Pachuca, who are desperate to make a mark. So the question is, how on earth did Real Madrid not just survive that, but actually come out and win 3-1? It seems almost impossible.
It really does. That setup sounds like pure sporting drama, doesn't it? A real test of character, tactics, everything.
That's exactly what we're diving into today. Welcome, everyone, to the Deep Dive. We're going to unpack this Real Madrid versus Pachuca match, piece by piece.
Yeah, looking beyond just the scoreline.
Way beyond. We want to get into the fascinating details, the unexpected twists, and what this game really tells us. Our mission here is to pull out all the key insights so you feel like you really understand what happened and why it matters.
And there's quite a bit to cover, isn't there? We'll start with setting that dramatic stage, obviously leading into that incredibly early red card.
Can't avoid that one.
No way. Then we'll look at the tactical responses, how the coaching staff reacted, and those moments of just pure individual brilliance that turned the tide.
Courtois comes to mind immediately.
Oh, definitely. And we have to talk about the stats because they paint a really weird picture at first glance. Lots of possession for Madrid, but
Way fewer shots than Pachuca. Right. We'll dig into that paradox.
exactly. Plus, there were some genuinely historic moments in this match, records broken, and even a pretty significant controversy towards the end.
Okay, let's get into it. This incredible story starts, as you said, with the setup. Where and when did this all unfold?
So the setting was Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina. This was June 22nd, 2025.
And not just any game. This was part of the 2025 FIFA World Cup Club, Group H, Round 2. So, pretty high stakes.
Absolutely critical. This was a huge match for both teams in terms of advancing the tournament. A real battle.
We mentioned the heat, but let's just underline that again. Extreme high temperatures, over 90 Fahrenheit, that's what, 32 Celsius?
Yeah, roughly. So hot that they actually had official water breaks mandated by the referee during the game.
Which adds a whole other strategic layer, doesn't it? It's managing player energy, hydration.
It really does. It's an extra challenge on top of everything else. Imagine trying to press or make lung-busting runs in that kind of heat, especially if you're down a player.
And there was something about the pitch, too, wasn't there? It wasn't the usual surface.
That's right. Bank of America Stadium normally has artificial turf, but for this tournament, they'd install a temporary natural grass pitch.
Which sounds good. Natural grass for soccer.
Ideally, yes. But sometimes these temporary installations can be a bit inconsistent. The bounce might be different, the footing maybe not quite what players are used to. It's just another small factor that can affect players' adaptation and performance, maybe even fatigue.
Subtle, but eventually significant.
Hmm.
Okay, so despite all these challenges, the result was massive. For Real Madrid, this was Xabi Alonso's first win as their coach, right?
His very first. A huge moment for him personally and for the club. It guaranteed their spot in the round of 16 and kept them top of Group H.
And the flip side for Pachuca.
Unfortunately for them, this loss meant early elimination, a really tough outcome for the Mexican champions.
Okay, let's get to the moment. The one that changed everything, unbelievably early. 7th minute.
Just 7 minutes in. It's hard to even process. Raul Asencio gets a direct red card.
What happened exactly?
He was judged to have blocked a clear scoring opportunity for Pachuca's Salomon Rondon. The referee didn't hesitate. Red card.
Wow. 7 minutes. The whole game plan just goes out the window. Real Madrid, the Giants, down to 10 men before the game's even properly started.
It must have been stunning for everyone in the stadium. And, this wasn't just a big moment in the game. It was historically significant.
How so?
That red card is now officially the earliest red card ever shown in any intercontinental club tournament history.
Get out. Really? What was the previous record?
14 minutes, apparently, from the 2022 tournament. Asensio's red card shattered that.
So before people had even finished their first drink, the entire complexion of this huge match was altered.
Completely. Think about the immediate scramble on the Real Madrid bench, the tactical rethink needed right there and then.
So what was the immediate impact? How does a team like Real Madrid even begin to deal with that? Being a man down for, what, 83 minutes plus stoppage time?
Well, the first thing is you pretty much have to tear up your initial game plan. They were forced immediately onto the back foot, adopting a much more conservative, deep defensive strategy.
Makes sense. Protect what you have, limit the damage.
Exactly. You have to become more compact, reduce the spaces between players, and basically try to frustrate the opposition who now have that extra man. It's a huge mental and tactical shift under immense pressure.
And often teams just crumble under that pressure,
Yeah.
especially in that heat.
They often do. The numerical disadvantage, the heat, the psychological blow, it can be overwhelming. But this is where Real Madrid showed something different. They didn't just survive, they showed this incredible resilience.
They really did.
Yeah.
Because despite all that, they started to fight back. And this brings us to some moments of just sheer individual brilliance. We have to talk about Thibaut Courtois around the 18th minute.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That was, for me, maybe the most critical moment of the entire match, certainly from a defensive standpoint.
What happened?
Pachuca, understandably, were trying to press their advantage. They launched a couple of quick, dangerous attacks right after Madrid were settling into their 10-man shape. And Courtois produced what can only be described as a world-class double save.
A double save.
Yes. He parried away the first powerful shot and then almost instantly had to react again to deny the follow-up attempt from close range. It was breathtaking goalkeeping.
And I kept the score at 0-0.
It did. He preserved the clean sheet at a moment when Pachuca scoring seemed almost inevitable. It felt huge.
It sounds like more than just a great save, though. It sounds like a statement.
It absolutely was. Psychologically, it was massive. It settled Real Madrid down, showed them they could withstand the pressure. It basically said, okay, we're down a man, but I'm still here, and you're not getting past easily.
Yeah, a real leader's moment.
Definitely. And crucially, it stopped Pachuca from gaining that early momentum and potentially running away with it. It laid the foundation for Madrid to regroup and think about how they could actually hurt Pachuca on the counter. Without that save, the whole story could have been very different.
So Courtois keeps them level. How did Real Madrid, still a man down, manage to adapt and actually start posing an attacking threat themselves? This feels like where Xabi Alonso's coaching really came into play.
It does. They didn't panic. They gradually adapted to playing with 10. And Alonso used that first official water break, which came around the half-hour mark, I think, really smartly.
What adjustments did he make?
Well, reports suggest he specifically instructed Vinicius Jr. to play in a more central attacking role.
Interesting. Moving him from the wing.
Yeah. Leveraging his pace and dribbling ability more directly towards goal, maybe trying to occupy Pachuca's central defenders more. And at the same time, he apparently encouraged Fran Garcia and Trent Alexander-Arnold, the fullbacks or wingbacks, to really push high and wide.
Trying to stretch the play, even with 10 men.
Exactly. The idea would be to force Pachuca's defense to cover the full width of the pitch, potentially creating gaps in the middle that Vinicius or others could exploit. It's clever using width to compensate for being outnumbered centrally. It forces the team with 11 to make choices about where they commit defenders.
And did these adjustments start to work?
Almost immediately. It led directly to the opening goal in the 35th minute, Jude Bellingham.
Yeah, Bellingham. Never surprises you when he steps up, does it?
He really doesn't. It was a fantastic team move, especially considering they were a man down. Fran Garcia, pushing forward from that wide position as instructed, delivered a great cross from the left.
And Bellingham.
He timed his run perfectly, arrived in the box, and clinically finished with a low left-footed shot from about 15 yards out, just slotted it home.
That must have been a huge lift for them, going ahead while playing with 10 men in those conditions.
Massive. And, it wasn't just the goal itself. It really underlined Bellingham's quality.
How so?
It showed his composure under pressure, his skill, obviously. But more than that, it showed his leadership. Here's this young player in a really tough situation for the team, and he's the one who delivers the breakthrough. It gave them belief.
He just seems to have that X factor, doesn't he?
He absolutely does. He leads by example.
And incredibly, Real Madrid weren't done in the first half. Just 8 minutes after Bellingham's goal, right before halftime, 43rd minute. Another one.
Another one. This time it was Arda Guler, and it was another beautifully worked goal.
Tell us about it.
It involved some really quick, neat combination play. Gonzalo Garcia made the final pass, but Trent Alexander-Arnold's cross from the right was apparently key in setting up the whole sequence. It was like one-touch passing, moving the ball quickly.
And Guler's finish.
He took the pass from Gonzalo Garcia and fired a right-footed shot into the bottom corner. Very precise finish.
So 2-0 at halftime, despite playing with 10 men since the 7th minute. That's astonishing.
It really is. And Guler's goal had its own piece of history attached to it as well.
Oh, what was that?
That goal made him the youngest player to score 10 goals for Real Madrid in all competitions since way back in the 2009-10 season.
Wow, how old is he?
Just 20 years and 57 days old at the time of the match. So a really significant personal milestone for him, on top of scoring a crucial goal in a tough game.
Incredible first half, really. Resilience, tactical adaptation, individual brilliance, historical moments, all packed in.
Absolutely. They went into the break leading 2-0, a man down, having weathered the storm, and then delivered 2 sucker punches. You couldn't have scripted it much better for them given the circumstances.
So, heading into the second half, Real Madrid are somehow 2-0 up, still with 10 men, still in that intense heat. Did Alonso make more changes at the break?
He did. He clearly wasn't resting on his laurels. He brought on Brahim Diaz at the start of the second half, presumably to inject some fresh energy and perhaps offer something different in attack or midfield control.
And did that have an impact?
It seemed to, yeah. Diaz is known for his close control, his dribbling, his ability to link play. Bringing him on likely helped Real Madrid maintain some threat going forward, preventing Pachuca from just pinning them back completely as they chased the game. Alonso showed he was reading the flow and making proactive adjustments.
And those adjustments, combined with the team's continued effort, led to sealing the deal, right? Federico Valverde got the 3rd goal.
Yes, in the 70th minute. And this goal was arguably the pick of the bunch in terms of pure team play.
Really? How did it unfold?
It started quite deep, actually, with Dean Weiss involved in the build-up, passing to Vinicius Jr., Vinny then did his thing, weaving past a couple of players, creating space.
Classic Vinicius.
Exactly. He then found Brahim Diaz, the substitute, and Diaz delivered a really precise cross into the box.
Finding Valverde.
Perfectly. Valverde had made a great run and timed it well, getting there for a sliding tap-in right in front of goal. Clinical finish to a fantastic move.
3-0 up with 20 minutes to go, even with 10 men. That really hammered home their dominance despite the disadvantage.
It did. It showed they weren't just defending and hoping for the best. They could still construct these intricate, high-quality attacking moves. It was a real statement of their quality and tactical execution.
Now, Pachuca did get one back, didn't they? A consolation goal later on.
They did, yeah, around the 80th minute. Elias Montiel was the scorer.
How did that goal come about?
It was a bit fortunate for them, actually. Montiel took a shot, and it took a significant deflection off Real Madrid's Aurelien Tchouameni.
Wrong-footed the keeper.
Completely. Courtois had no chance with the deflection, sending it the other way. Javier Eduardo Lopez got the assist.
So 3-1. Still a comfortable win for Madrid, but good for Pachuca to get on the score sheet.
Absolutely. You have to give them credit for their spirit. Even at 3-0 down, they didn't just give up. They kept pushing, kept trying to find a way through, and they got that reward. It showed their tenacity, the professional pride, even though the result was ultimately decided.
Definitely commendable. Now, before we move on to the stats and tactics in more detail, there was that unfortunate incident late in the match. A serious one.
Yes, sadly. There was an allegation of racism. Antonio Rudiger, the Real Madrid defender, accused Pachuca's Gustavo Cabral of directing racist abuse towards him.
That's obviously incredibly serious. How was it handled during the game?
What was really significant here was FIFA's response. They activated their anti-racism protocol.
For the first time in this tournament, right?
Yes, the very first time in this expanded 32-team World Cup club. The referee signaled it by making an X gesture with his arms.
What does activating the protocol mean?
It means the incident is officially logged, reported, and will be investigated by FIFA's disciplinary bodies. It's a clear signal that the allegation is being taken seriously and procedures are underway. It really underscored FIFA's public stance against racism in soccer.
And what was Cabral's response to the accusation? It's important we hear that side too.
Absolutely crucial for impartiality. Cabral strongly denied using any racist language. He did admit, apparently, to calling Rudiger cagon, which translates from Spanish to something like damn coward.
So he admitted insulting him but denied it was racist.
Exactly. He claimed his comment was related to Rudiger's play, maybe perceived timidity, not his race. It highlights how complex these situations can be, especially in the heat of the moment, with language barriers potentially playing a role. Ultimately, FIFA will investigate and make their findings known.
A very serious matter, and good that there's a protocol in place. Okay, let's pivot to the numbers, because they tell a really interesting, almost contradictory story in this game. Possession first.
Yeah, the possession stats are striking. Real Madrid had 65.4% of the ball. Pachuca only had 34.6%.
So based on that, you'd think Real Madrid dominated the chances, right?
You would absolutely think that. But here's the paradox. Pachuca had a massive 25 total shots in the game.
25
hmm
compared to how many for Real Madrid?
Just 8. 8 shots for Real Madrid.
It's bizarre. 65% possession, but outshot almost 3-1. How does that even happen?
It's fascinating, isn't it? It really shows that possession doesn't automatically mean penetration or creating good chances. Pachuca, despite having much less of the ball, were clearly finding ways to get shots off frequently.
But obviously those shots weren't effective.
Not at all. And that's the crucial difference, the hidden story in the stats.
Yeah.
Efficiency. Real Madrid scored 3 goals from their 8 shots. That's a conversion rate of 37.5%.
Which is incredibly clinical. And Pachuca.
They scored 1 goal from their 25 shots. That's a conversion rate of just 4%.
Wow. So quality completely trumped quantity here.
Absolutely. Real Madrid were ruthless and precise when they got their opportunities, even though those opportunities were much rarer. Pachuca were firing away but lacked that cutting edge. It's a great illustration of being effective versus just being busy.
Any other stats that jump out and reinforce that idea? Shots on target, maybe?
Yeah, shots on target were much closer. Real Madrid had 5, Pachuca had 4. So while Pachuca shot 25 times, only 4 actually tested Courtois directly besides the deflected goal.
Which highlights Courtois' saves even more, if only 4 shots were on target. But he made, what, 4 key saves according to some ratings, plus dealing with crosses and commanding his area?
Exactly. He dealt with most of the actual danger effectively. Corners were fairly even, 6 for Madrid, 5 for Pachuca. Saves, as you mentioned, 4 credited to Courtois, only 2 for Pachuca's keeper. And the cards, of course, with that one massive red for Madrid early on, 0 yellows for them. Pachuca picked up 2 yellows, no reds.
It all paints a picture of Madrid being incredibly disciplined defensively after the red card, absorbing pressure, and being lethal when they broke forward, which speaks volumes about the tactical setup.
It really does. They started in a nominal 4-1-2-3 formation, but that went out the window after 7 minutes.
So how did they actually line up and play with 10?
They dropped into a much deeper defensive block. Sometimes it looked almost like a 4-4-1 or even a 5-3-1, depending on the phase of play. They were compact, narrow, trying to deny space centrally.
And relying on counterattacks.
Heavily. And that's where Alonso's adjustments were key. Pushing Vinicius more central gave them that lightning-fast outlet right down the middle.
A direct threat.
Yes. And having Garcia and Alexander-Arnold providing the width meant that when they did win the ball back, they could stretch Pachuca quickly, pull their defenders out of position, and create those spaces for Vini, Bellingham, or Guler to exploit. It was reactive, yes, but incredibly effective and well-drilled.
A real tactical masterclass under duress. And Pachuca's 4-2-3-1, what was their approach beyond just shooting a lot?
Their strategy seemed based on high-intensity pressing, trying to force mistakes high up the pitch, especially after Madrid went down to 10. They wanted to dominate the midfield and use that extra man to overload areas.
Which led to the high shot volume.
Exactly. They got into shooting positions frequently, but as we saw, they just couldn't find the quality or composure in the final moment. Their pressing was good, their intent was clear, but the execution in the final third let them down badly. They couldn't break down that organized, deep-lying Madrid defense effectively enough, despite the man advantage.
Let's dive into some of those standout individual performances now. We have to start with Thibaut Courtois, rated 9 out of 10, described as heroic.
And rightly so. It was a monumental performance. Some reports credited him with 10 saves overall, not just the 4 official shots on target, probably including blocks or claims under pressure. That 18th minute double save was the highlight, the definite turning point.
Kept them in it when they were most vulnerable.
Absolutely. He was a rock back there, just exuded calm and made incredibly difficult saves look almost routine, a true world-class display when his team needed him most. You could argue it was a season-defining performance crammed into one game.
And the man of the match, Jude Bellingham. An 8 out of 10 rating, we talked about his goal and leadership.
Yeah, he was immense, scored that crucial first goal with such composure. But it was his all-around game, his energy, his tackling back, his driving runs forward, even with 10 men, his ability to just take responsibility. He was the engine room, and the inspiration rolled into one. Truly phenomenal for a player his age in that situation.
Arda Guler also got an 8 out of 10. Is his historic goal and overall play.
He was excellent. That goal was superbly taken and historically significant for him in the club. But beyond that, he showed great technical skill, kept the ball well under pressure, linked play intelligently. He helped Madrid maintain periods of control even when outnumbered. A very mature and impressive display.
And on the Pachuca side, even in a losing effort, Salomon Rondon stood out, getting a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, he was their main threat, definitely. He was the player fouled for the red card, so he had a huge impact right from the start.
Changed the game.
Absolutely. And he remained a handful throughout. He had 4 shots himself, hit the post once. His physical presence and movement caused Real Madrid's defenders problems all game. He was just unlucky, or perhaps lacked that final bit of clinical finishing on the day, not to get on the score sheet himself.
Okay, let's move beyond the pitch now.
Yeah.
What did the coaches have to say after this roller coaster of a match? Xabi Alonso must have been pleased with his first win.
He was very proud, yes. He talked about the team showing great maturity and understanding the difficult situation very well. He specifically praised how they handled playing almost the entire game a man down.
Did he comment specifically on Asencio's red card? That must have been a tough moment early in his tenure.
He did. He acknowledged Asencio was very disappointed and that the red card changes everything, but he was also quite pragmatic and analytical about it.
How so?
He actually said, frankly, in those moments, sometimes it's better to let the forward score and stay with 11 players than to be sent off.
Interesting. A calculated risk assessment almost.
Exactly. It shows his strategic thinking that sometimes conceding a goal is less damaging than losing a player for 80-plus minutes. He also explained his tactical shifts, confirming the move of Vinicius Central and using the wide players after the red card forced them deep.
And Pachuca's coach, Jaime Lozano. What was his take, especially on that racism allegation that came up post-match?
His response regarding the racism allegation was mainly one of surprise, actually. He told the media, "I just learned about it from you. We didn't talk about it in the locker room. I haven't talked to Cabral about it."
So he couldn't really comment because he wasn't aware.
Pretty much. He emphasized he couldn't provide an explanation as it was the first he was hearing of it, which seems fair enough in that immediate post-match press conference setting. He didn't speculate.
Right. Let's look at the bigger picture than the tournament standings. Where did this result leave Group H?
Okay, so after this round, Real Madrid and Salzburg Red Bull are tied at the top with 4 points each, 1 win, 1 draw.
Neck and neck.
Yep. Al Hilal are third with 2 points from 2 draws. And sadly for Pachuca, they're on 0 points after 2 losses, meaning they were officially eliminated.
The first CONCACAF team out of the tournament. That's tough.
Very tough for them.
So what does Real Madrid need to do in their final group game against Salzburg to guarantee top spot?
It's pretty straightforward for them now. They just need a draw against Salzburg in that final match. That game's on June 26 in Philadelphia. A draw secures qualification for the round of 16 and guarantees they finish first in the group.
Which is important for the knockout draw, usually.
Generally, yes. Finishing first typically means facing a second-place team from another group, which, on paper at least, should be a slightly easier path.
This match felt significant beyond just the result, too, didn't it? Lots of little historical footnotes.
It really did. You had Alonso's first win, which is a big personal milestone. You had Asencio setting that unwanted record for the earliest red card in this type of tournament.
The first use of the FIFA anti-racism protocol in the tournament's history.
Hugely significant, demonstrating that protocol in action. And then Guler's record youngest player to hit 10 goals for Madrid since 2009-10. Lots of memorable moments packed into 90 minutes.
And maybe this game, with all its drama and resilience, kind of validates the idea of this expanded 32-team World Cup club.
You could definitely argue that. It showed the potential for compelling storylines, high drama, and tests for even the biggest clubs. It delivered a really memorable narrative. Plus, on a practical level, it's crucial organizational practice for the hosts ahead of the 2026 World Cup in North America, ironing out the kinks, testing logistics.
Makes sense. How did the wider world react? What were the fans and media saying?
Well, Real Madrid fans were obviously ecstatic about the win, and particularly about Courtois. Social media was full of praise, calling his performance godlike, legendary.
Predictable, but deserved. Any concerns?
There was some chatter about Asencio's red card, maybe highlighting lack of depth at center back if he's considered cover there. And for Alonso, while people were happy with the win and the resilience, some were still, cautiously optimistic, maybe wanting to see more defensive solidity consistently.
Understandable. And the major media outlets?
They all picked up on the key themes. ESPN focused heavily on the drama, the extreme heat, and Courtois' brilliance. Goal.com highlighted Alonso's tactical adjustments and the team's mental strength. Sports Illustrated emphasized the significance of Alonso's first win and Madrid's strong position in the group, different angles, but all acknowledging it was a remarkable game.
And there was a poignant moment connected to the game, too, wasn't there? A tribute.
Yes, a really lovely touch. There was a tribute paid to Sergio Nieto, a Real Madrid superfan who had recently passed away at the age of 100. He had supported the club for 93 years.
Wow, 93 years. That's incredible loyalty.
Isn't it? It just adds that human element, reminds you of the deep connection fans have with their clubs over generations.
So, looking ahead for Real Madrid, they have that final group game against Salzburg. What are the immediate challenges for Alonso?
Well, the main goal is securing that top spot, so avoiding defeat against Salzburg is key. But he also has to manage the squad. There are some injury concerns lingering. Kylian Mbappe apparently had gastroenteritis. Endrick had a hamstring issue.
So squad rotation might be necessary.
You'd think so, especially with the knockout rounds coming up thick and fast. Keeping players fresh, avoiding more injuries in these conditions, while still getting the result they need against Salzburg, that's the balancing act.
And tactically, is there anything specific Alonso needs to keep working on as they progress?
I think the big one is continuing to build that defensive stability and understanding within the system, especially when they play with 11 men against top opposition. This game forced a specific reactive approach. As they move forward, establishing a consistent, proactive defensive structure will be vital if they want to go all the way.
So overall, what's the verdict on Real Madrid's chances in this tournament after this display?
Well, this win definitely showed their championship DNA, didn't it? Their ability to adapt, overcome adversity, and find a way to win even when things go dramatically wrong. They have the history, 5 previous World Cup club titles.
The most successful team ever in the competition.
Exactly. They clearly have the quality, the individual brilliance, and now they've shown incredible resilience under their new coach. The potential is definitely there to contend for the title again.
But the caveat is that defense.
Yeah, I think that remains the key area to watch. If they can maintain that defensive solidity consistently, especially against the other top teams, and combine it with the clinical finishing they showed here, they have to be considered one of the absolute favorites. They've laid down a marker.
It really was an extraordinary match, wasn't it? Showing how those totally unexpected curveballs can sometimes bring out the absolute best, or at least the most revealing aspects of a team's character and tactical smarts.
Absolutely. That mental strength to not fold after the red card, but to actually thrive was incredible.
So the final thought for you listening, this deep dive into Real Madrid's incredible win really highlights how teams or even individuals can excel when the odds feel insurmountably stacked against them. What does this story tell you about finding strength and strategic brilliance in the face of adversity? Maybe not just on a soccer pitch, but in the challenges you face in your own life.